Hello, Joe here from Infiniti of Tacoma. Gonna do something a little fun today. We have this 2020 BMW Z4 over here, and I also have this 2020 Toyota Supra. It might not look like it, but these vehicles are very similar. In fact, they're cousins. On the outside, one's a coupe, one's a convertible. The styling's definitely different on both of them, but underneath all that cool styling, the nuts and bolts of it are very, very similar. This Supra is actually largely based on this BMW Z4 platform. The Supra was reintroduced for the 2020 model year. Finally the Supra has come back. We remembered the Supra from the 90s. The last year of the previous generation Supra was 1998. I actually happened to work at Toyota in those days. I had the chance to drive many of those turbo and non-turbo Supras with the legendary 2JZ engines. They are amazing vehicles. And I was really excited to have the chance to check out the new Supra. And I was also kind of interested to find out that it's actually based on the BMW Z4 platform. And it costs a lot of money to develop a car. Lots and lots of money. So you actually might find this platform sharing is more common than you think. Some other platforms that are shared is the Subaru BRZ and the Toyota 86 are pretty much nearly identical vehicles. It costs a lot of money to develop a car from the ground up, develop an engine. The legendary Supra from the 90s with the 2JZ inline 6 was really important to the Supra heritage. So when Toyota came out with a new Supra, they thought it was there was no negotiation that had to have an inline 6, but Toyota doesn't have any inline 6s in their part bins. Not really too much, anybody else does. One of the only companies still making inline 6s, and quite an amazing one, is BMW. Obviously the interior is a little bit different on the Toyota than on the BMW. You can see some similarities. Obviously the seat design is very similar. Then we go to the center console, the gauge cluster, the dashboard. It's a little bit different design. The buttons, the shifter, it's definitely BMW. You can tell this is the BMW stuff right here. The screen, all very, very BMW-ish. So we can see that the BMW influence a little bit, but definitely it does have a different feel and look than the Z4 version of it. And I guess one of the biggest differences is that the Supra is only available in a hardtop, where the BMW you get only as a convertible. And for 2020, there's also a little bit different in the power plant. So for 2020, the output on the Toyota Supra is about 330 horsepower. I think it's like 333 to be exact, but somewhere around 330 horsepower. But the BMW is a little bit different. Actually, you get a little bit more horsepower in the BMW for 2020. The BMW pumps out a little over 380 horsepower. Toyota did rectify that in 2021. I think some people thought it wasn't fair that BMW's engine, which is nearly the same, makes more horsepower. So in 2021, the Supra's output was up to be pretty much identical to what the BMW makes. Though even though the Supra makes less horsepower than the BMW, when you actually drive them, I mean, they both feel really fast. As far as acceleration and performance goes, it is very, very similar. Sitting inside the BMW, it feels somewhat similar to the Supra. The seating position, the length of the hood, all that stuff. But obviously the dashboard design. Let's take a look at the seats. This has a little bit of a different upgraded seat, but you can see the same basic seat design seems to be on both of them. Steering wheel is a little bit different, and obviously, the gauge cluster is a little bit different as well. Another interesting tidbit about the Supra is actually one of the shortest wheelbase, widest track vehicles that you can buy. So I'll have to do some research. I'll pop it up on the screen, but I'm thinking the Supra probably has a little bit of a wider wheelbase, possibly than the Z4, which would maybe aid its handling ability a little bit. But from a handling standpoint, this is one advantage that you have with a Supra. As awesome as convertibles are, there is one little problem. When you have a performance vehicle and you're going around corners, the body tends to twist and bend. And that's why, you know, car companies go through all the, you know, great lengths to make the chassis as strong as possible. You always see, oh, in this updated, you know, version of this car, the chassis is 40% stronger. Because when you're going around corners, when it starts twisting and bending, that really is not great for handling. So you can see with this BMW, pretty much all the strength of it is all in here on the bottom of it. You don't have a roof like in that Supra to further strengthen the chassis. Obviously, they add reinforcements and stuff to the BMW and convertibles to compensate for not having a roof, but you can compensate, but you really can't replace having a roof and all this extra metal and unibody to strengthen the vehicle. And another advantage you're going to have with a Supra is you're going to have a little bit more cargo space. It's not, you know, tons and tons larger, but it is a little bit larger than the Z4. You even have this kind of recessed area for storage. Or look at the Z4's trunk. It's definitely smaller, not too much smaller, but definitely a little bit smaller. And then of course you have a little bit more vertical space as well. But styling wise, they look like completely different vehicles on the outside. I don't think you could make a wrong decision with either vehicle. I think it really comes down to about personal preferences. The BMW is going to be more of a luxury automobile. Obviously it's got a BMW badge. BMW is going to have a little bit more cachet than a Toyota badge, especially if people don't really know what a Supra is. And then being a convertible, it's going to be a little bit more enjoyable for, you know, nice drives and stuff like that. If you're a full-on, you know, want the best performance, the sportiest vehicle as possible, I think the Toyota Supra is a little bit more of a harder edge sports car, where the BMW is kind of more of a sports car, you know, grand touring vehicle. Obviously, as far as comfort goes, it's going to be very similar. You're going to have a little bit less wind noise and stuff like that with a hard top versus a soft top. But really it all comes down to personal preference. I don't think you'll be making a wrong decision on either vehicle. They're both great vehicles. Me myself, I'd be happy to drive any of them. Maybe one of these days you'll have a chance to sample them, but you know, luckily if you happen to come in where both these are in stock and maybe you're considering both vehicles, you'll have a chance to test drive both of them and see how they compare. Thanks so much for taking the time today to watch this video. Hopefully it was informative if you're curious about, you know, the differences between the Supra and the Z4. They are cousins, they share a lot of similarities, but they're also different in so many ways. Thanks for watching, hope to see you soon, and have a wonderful day.